welcome. I'm going to welcome you to yet another episode of the Unpopular Podcast. And, man, I love the NBA, man. I love basketball as a whole, but these playoffs, especially that last round, really embodied why we love, or why you should love the NBA. Why I love the NBA. Why I love basketball as a whole. While it wasn't maybe as unpredictable as we expected, there was some great matchups. I'm gonna talk about them. I'm gonna talk about each one. Let's start with probably the the fastest one, which is Milwaukee and Boston. So Boston lost the series 1-4, and everybody was killing Paul Pierce because Paul Pierce went out game one after Boston pretty much destroyed Milwaukee, and like, oh, it's a wrap. It's a wrap, and Milwaukee won by more than 10 points the rest of the way. But it's crazy to see a contrast in these two teams. You see, these two teams are a lot similar, as in players. They have a lot of players that can play a solid role for a team. Of course, you have Giannis, you have Kyrie, you have Jaylen Brown, Michael Brogdon, and I'm not saying talent-wise these players are equal, but these players, of course, play a central part in winning. What makes these two teams different is when you look at Milwaukee doesn't have the same talent as players as nearly anybody in the playoffs, actually, or anybody that was in that last round or that's still in the playoffs. But everyone knows their role. They know who the alpha is, which is Giannis. They know, the shooters. They know who gets the ball in the last plays, who you run plays for. They know their job, and they don't deviate from their job too many times. Of course, you have one game where maybe Eric Bledsoe will go for 30 or 32 points or something like that. But if you look at those games, Giannis still controls the ball majority of the time. The reason why Milwaukee has been on a tear this year is because not only do you have Giannis, who is once in a generational player, but the team knows their role. On the flip side, you have Boston. You see, the worst thing that could have happened to Boston is being within a game of the NBA Finals last year. Now, yes, that is great for, of course, the team. They made it to the conference finals. It was great for the team, but the worst thing you could have done is have that success and then come into this year and add one borderline one superstar in Kyrie and a all-star player in Gordon Hayward, who's coming off of an injury. When you have a young team like that, while adding Kyrie, while adding Gordon Hayward, and one of those players, which is Kyrie, expects to be the leader day one, which rightfully, usually the best player should be the leader, but, we've seen that's not always the case. When you have young players that have seen success without you, and then you come and be like, all right, I'm the leader. Now everyone's looking at you like, bro, what are you talking about? How are you the leader, but we did this without you? How do you expect us to follow you, but we did that? We went further without you. That is that team. I'm not gonna say doesn't know their role, but doesn't want to play their or doesn't want to confide to their role. And that's what we saw the whole year from Boston. You'll have stretches when Boston looks like one of the worst teams in the league. Then you'll have stretches where they look unbeatable. Hell, they beat Golden State by like 40 points at Golden State. And when you have a team that knows everyone's role, plus you have a once-in-a-generational player like Giannis going against a team where you have talent all around, but not everybody is bought into their role, and they go against each other, you get what you saw with Milwaukee and Boston. Milwaukee, except for outside of round the first game, they ran through Boston. Like Boston didn't even deserve to be in the playoffs. And if you really look at Boston's, I mean, yeah, they beat Indiana, but they beat Indiana in the first round without a Victor Oladipo. When their main playmaker was Wesley Matthews and Bogdanovich. You know, Boston's in a weird spot right now. Boston has so much talent. Of course, you have Kyrie, who's going to be a free agent. You have all these draft picks that you've accumulated from trades and of course your own draft picks. And then you have the Anthony Davis situation. Now, for people that don't know, Anthony Davis demanded a trade from the Pelicans, and the two teams that pretty much have the most or could give them the most or could give New Orleans the most for Anthony Davis is Boston and LA, as in the Lakers. And that puts Boston in a odd position. Not even an odd position. That puts Boston in a weird position. Do you give Kyrie Irving? Because if I'm Anthony Davis, why would I? Well, Boston without Kyrie is a better team than what New Orleans has, of course. But you're going for the draw of playing with Kyrie. Kyrie with Anthony Davis, that's a lethal group. Not to mention, you don't really have to give up. Well, you'll probably have to give up Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, maybe Marcus Smart, and pretty much most of your draft picks. But Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving would be a sight to see. The thing about that is we don't know if Kyrie's going to stay, and all indications from what we've seen this year looks like, why would you stay? The team doesn't want to play with you like that. I mean, almost every week there's been reports of arguments somewhere. So if the team doesn't really want to play with you like that, you didn't make it as far as you did without you. It's hard for me. Now, of course, Boston has already come out and said that they're trying to re-sign Kyrie. One, because you don't want to lose that talent for nothing. Two, because you still want to get Anthony Davis, and Kyrie is the biggest draw for getting Anthony Davis. It's hard for me to see Kyrie stay. Now, of course, I could see him stay if there's a guarantee that they get Anthony Davis. And they had a history of friendship. If they come together and say, "Hey, let's be one of the top or continue to be one of the top Eastern Conference teams and compete for a championship," let's do it. Now, of course, you also have the side story, of Kyrie could join Kevin Durant somewhere. Because, of course, Kevin Durant, people know, is a free agent. That's a side story in and of itself, but Boston doesn't want to lose Kyrie. So that's something that we want to. It's gonna be real tense come July for Boston because we don't know what they're gonna do. Of course, you're gonna get all the reports. You know, Kevin Durant opts out of his player option. Kyrie Irving opts out of his player option. Kawhi Leonard opts out of his player option. We're going to see all that, and then, of course, he's definitely leaving. That doesn't, why would you keep the player option when you can just get a whole new contract and they can pay you more? So just because a player opts out of the contract doesn't mean he's going to leave. But the three names that I just said, Kyrie, Kawhi Leonard, and KD, are definitely high risk of flight from each team. So it's crazy to see where Boston's going to go from here. It really is. I don't know. Again, I don't know if they can keep Kyrie. If they keep Kyrie, will they get Anthony Davis? If they lose Kyrie, Will they still try for Anthony Davis? Like there's a lot of puzzle pieces that Boston has to figure out. And of course they have time now since they ain't playing, but they'll have to figure it out. Now for Milwaukee, they haven't really been tested yet. Boston should have been their test, but they haven't been tested yet in these playoffs. They will be tested next round, and let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers and Toronto Raptors series, which was arguably the most exciting series of the second round. Let me just put this out there. Kawhi Leonard's on a different level. I think people say that we forgot how good Kawhi Leonard is. Kawhi never been this good. Kawhi wasn't this good when he won the Finals MVP. Kawhi wasn't this good the year after. He wasn't this good the year that he got injured with Zaza Pachulia. Kawhi Leonard is playing the best basketball of his life. And because of that, Toronto is a team that should be feared. And what makes Toronto to me, and just disclaimer, I don't know if I said this in fact, I probably did say this on the podcast. I had Toronto and Golden State making it to the NBA Finals. Now, I didn't have Toronto winning, but I had them going to the NBA Finals because to me, they had the 2/3 best players in the NBA. In the playoffs, from Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Kawhi Leonard. Toronto is the reason why I picked Toronto to make it to the finals, for people that didn't listen to the episode, was because Toronto has so much. They have depth. They have defense. They're like top 2 or 3 in the NBA in defense. They have a star player that can go get them a bucket in Kawhi Leonard. They have a solid supporting cast. You have Kyle Lowry when he's on. Danny Green. You have Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol. Them getting Marc Gasol was huge. Yeah, that kind of cut their bench drastically, but you still bring on Marc Gasol, who's a great veteran. Toronto has a lot, and it's hard for me. It was hard for me to choose against Toronto. But if I was going to choose against Toronto, it would have been Philly. Philly losing this series. Oh, spoiler alert, Philly lost. And before I go to Philly, Kawhi Leonard hit one of the craziest game winners in Game 7. For people that didn't see it, please go look, man. That ball bounced damn near everywhere on the rim before it hit. And he hit it over Joel Embiid. I'm trying to tell you, man, Kawhi Leonard is on a whole other level when it comes to this basketball stuff that he does. Yeah, and I think maybe he doesn't get a lot of credit because he's not demonstrative. He doesn't really give too much personality. He's not too high. He's probably too low. But Kawhi Leonard just goes out there and hoop. And he's not for the pleasantries. He just does what he has to do. And he led Toronto to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now let's talk about the 76ers. There is a lot, and I mean a lot, going on with the 76ers right now. The 76ers have some decisions to make. You have Joel Embiid, who is a top 10 player in the league. The problem is his maturity is in question a lot of times. Also, he can't stay healthy. He is constantly hurt. We saw this series from hip and back pains to sicknesses. Nearly every game was something different. But when he's on, like I said, he's a top 10 player. You have Ben Simmons, who could be one of the best players in the league. The problem is He hasn't improved. From the 2 years he's been playing, he hasn't improved. His jump shot damn near looks worse than it. No, it can't look worse. His jump shot is non-existent. And the worst part about it is he refuses. It's not like he just. I understand if you can't shoot, but you continue to shoot. Like Marcus Smart. I don't know why the hell he keeps shooting, but he continues to shoot even though he can't shoot. Ben Simmons refuses to shoot, and he has the ball the most because he's the point guard. You have Jimmy Butler, who will be a free agent. You have Tobias Harris, who will be a free agent. And then you have Brett Brown, the coach. And some of the plays that I don't know if he's a good coach or not. I know he has a good team, but I don't know if he's a good coach because we look at some of the plays, of course, even like when we look at some of the plays down the stretch of these games that they're in, close games, and they're really questionable, man. Giving the ball to players that shouldn't even have the ball. Trusting, drawing up elementary plays. Like, losing this series probably cost Brett Brown his job. When you have arguably the second best starting five in the league, and you lose in the second round, when you're projected to go at least to the Eastern Conference Finals, somebody's going to be the scapegoat. Now, it might be well deserved that it's Brett Brown, but this team needs to get their maturity in order, needs to get their priorities in order. They need to figure out, are they going to pay Jimmy Butler, and can they convince Jimmy Butler to stay? Because there are reports that the Lakers are looking at Jimmy Butler because that's probably the most realistic person they can get, seeing as though I don't see them really getting any superstars. Maybe not Kawhi. Maybe Kyrie, but that's a far stretch. Can they sign Tobias Harris? They're going to probably have to overpay. I don't know if Tobias Harris is worth a max contract, but Tobias Harris would be important to that team. And their bench really is sucks. You got James Ennis, you got Mike Scott, you got TJ McConnell, who can barely get off the floor or barely get on the floor this series. You have Greg Monroe, who seemingly has been on every damn team in the league. Philly has a lot. They have a lot of talent, but they still have a lot to figure out. Who deserves what money? Who's gonna get the money? Who's gonna stay? Will Ben Simmons ever? Again, it's not the fact that his shot is off. It's just he can't shoot. Will Joel Embiid, be a little more mature? And it looked bad, seeing him. He was weeping. Like, he was. I understand you tear up when you lost. But this nigga, he was he was welling. I understand, you put your heart into it, but my dude, man, come on, bro. Man up. It's always Philly has the makeup of a team to be great. They have the pillars to be a great team. It's just I don't think that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid can coexist together due to the fact that Ben Simmons does not have a jump shot. So they both crowd the paint. Again, we still have to see if Jimmy Butler can stay or will stay. We have to see if Tobias Harris will stay. They just have a lot of ifs. A lot of ifs and a lot of things they need to figure out because, again, they're on the cusp of being a great team. It's just they have to figure some things out, man. And they're still young. But it gets to a point where that excuse can't be an excuse anymore. Yeah, they're young, but even with youth, you're in the NBA. Your game should be developing as you continue to go. And the fact that it's not, and I'm looking at Ben Simmons at this point, the fact that it's not really really is a question mark to me. If I was owning the team, it would be a question mark that you have all off season, and you even had a year where you didn't play. So you've technically been in the league for 3 years, but because you had an injury year, your first year, you weren't in your rookie year. That means you have all this time to get a jump shot right, and you have yet to get that done. Philly has some things to figure out, man. They really this offseason is going to be critical for them. Whether they're just going to be a great team that stays in the middle of the pack, or are they going to make the necessary decisions and the necessary moves and the necessary improvements to be that real championship level team? We'll have to see. They're young, though. They are young. And we'll have to see. Speaking of youth, let's go to Portland and Denver. On paper, Denver should have won this series. Yes, the game went 7. Yes, the series went 7 games, and it was arguably this one of the best series in the second round. But man, look, I said before that youth should stop being an excuse. But, well, there are times when youth is not an excuse anymore. But looking at this Denver team, Denver, outside of the backcourt, is better at Portland in every single form. They have Nikola Jokic. They have Jamal Murray. They have Gary Harris. They have pieces that are great players. The problem is they've never been in a position where, to me, they have to perform. And it showed. Jamal Murray had a terrible series. Terrible series. While Gary Harris had a great series, he didn't have a good series offensively. He had a great series in the way he was defending Damian Lillard. But we just saw too many times late games or in games where they'll have bonehead fouls, especially in Game 7. Bonehead fouls. There'll be times when everybody except for Nikola Jokic would be on a scoring drought. That definitely happened in Game 7. Game 7, they were up 17 points in the second quarter, I believe. 17 points against Trailblazers team who was out their third best player in what's his name? Nurkic, whatever his name is. The center who went out with a gruesome leg injury. They still don't have their third best player yet. They couldn't get it done. And we saw really early in these playoffs that while Jokic is the best player, if Jamal Murray is great, like having a great game, they usually win that game. Or having a good game, they usually win that game. If he's not, they're losing. It's hard being, and I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this in another podcast. But it's hard being the best player on your team as a center and winning, because you're dependent on so much. Again, we'll talk about that on another podcast. If you can win as a center being your best player in today's game, but we'll keep going. So that's why Jamal Murray and Gary Harris were so important, because without them, it's going to be a challenge. And we saw And we saw that they didn't, especially Jamal Murray, the last game, they didn't step up. Or it was a struggle for them. I think that while the difference, to me, the difference between the Philadelphia and Denver is that Philadelphia is young, but they have issues, like serious issues. Denver doesn't have too many issues. I think that with Denver, they just have to mature with each other. They have a lot of pieces. Now, for the life of me, before I keep going, I do not understand why Isaiah Thomas was not playing in this series. Isaiah Thomas is one of the only people on the bench that had playoff experience outside of Paul Millsap. Jamal Murray was struggling. Even the backup Morris, was it Monte Morris or something? He went 0 for, I think, 13 in the playoffs from 3. Now, while I don't know if he would have been, as in Isaiah Thomas would have been, he would have been a terrible matchup against Damian Lillard. You could still put him in with backup play. You can put him in with Seth Curry's playing. You can put him in on Evan Turner, or while Evan Turner's in the game. See, that's something I didn't understand. I understand that the youth aspect and the fact that Isaiah Thomas is a little older. He doesn't really, he's not the best at passing the ball, but he still has playoff experience. So that's something I didn't understand, but the optimism should be high for Denver. Like I said, they're young, and it's not young with problems. Jamal Murray just had a tough series. He had a tough playoffs, actually. But if you look at the two teams that he played, you're going against one of the most experienced teams in NBA history in the Spurs. And then you're going against Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum in the next round. So I understand it was tough for Jamal, but Denver just needs to continue to grow together. It needs to continue to grow in the league. Jokic is only 24. And when you look at teams in the West, if one piece moves and another piece moves, the West can be not even the West. The NBA can be wide open. So I just think Denver to me is in a lot better spot right now than Philadelphia is. But both teams are very young. Well, the most important players on both teams are young. And on Portland's side, man, it's something it's something to really marvel when a player gives his all to a team, to a series, to a game. We saw Damian Lillard pretty much start not like boo-hooing, but we saw him tearing up at the end of the game 7. And Damian Lillard been through a lot, man. If you listen to his story, he's been through a lot. Not really recruited, had to go to Weber State. He reps the city of Oakland heavy. He's always been overlooked and doubted. Hell, even today, he still. When we talk about the best players in the league, we don't really talk about Damian that much. We might talk about him as one of the best point guards, but when we talk about in totality the players, we don't really talk about Damian Lillard that much. So for the fact that he's already come out and said he's loyal to the team, and the team, he wants to stay for life, and to see them get over the hump, not only once, but twice, and two teams when they were heavy underdogs. In round 1, while they are the seed higher than OKC on paper had the better players. From Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Steven Adams, Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Cantor. And don't get me wrong, if you watched Game 7, Damian Lillard had a terrible offensive game. I believe he went 3 for 17 or 18. Now he did a lot of. I mean, he damn near had a triple double, and he didn't give up. He didn't. I don't think he forced shots, but he had a terrible game offensively or shooting the ball wise. Let me say that. It was C.J. McCollum who was. I think he had like 37. It's something to be said when an under. Portland is sort of like an underdog story in the NBA. Now I know there's not too many underdog stories, but Portland is one of them. From 2 years getting swept. Of course, the first year getting swept, we understood because you went against a juggernaut in Golden State. The second year was unexcusable because you were the higher ranked seed against the New Orleans Pelicans when all they really had was Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis and Rondo at the time. But to go from that to now playing in the Western Conference Finals, when if you look at their road, like I said, you went against OKC where you were underdogs. You went against Denver when you were underdogs. Now you're about to play in the Western Conference Finals when you're underdogs. It's something to be said, man. And I think that's why Damian Lillard was as emotional because he understands the price, the price that you pay. You pretty much sacrifice your life to be as great. Some people, when you want to be as great, you sacrifice your life to be great. Some people do it a lot more than others. Some people just make it to the NBA. Some people play in the NBA just for the money. Some people, you can tell Damian Lillard is a person that plays because he loves the sport. And his energy, while he can be having a terrible game, and then you look up and C.J. McCollum's going off for 37. Or C.J. McCollum and Damian Lillard can be having off games. You look up at Enes Kanter as 27 and 18. Enes Kanter, who's playing with a separated shoulder, by the way, and who was one of the worst defenders in the league. See, I think the energy of your leader resonates throughout the whole team. And that's what was wrong with Boston. When your leader, and Kyrie Irving, is aloof a little bit, sometimes has that me mentality, sometimes doesn't like passing doesn't like passing the ball too much, has a little spats with the media, kind of wishy-washy in what he says with the media, kind of that demonstrative attitude. It resonates with the team. Hell, you can even say it with Russell Westbrook. There was reports when Russell Westbrook, when Paul George was playing at an MVP level, it was Paul George's team, and it was a lot more calmer and smoother in the locker room. Players really knew they knew they can be free with themselves. And then when Paul George went down with that shoulder injury, and it became Russell's team again, it got real tense. The personality of your best player or your leader resonates throughout the entire locker room. And that's what we saw. That's what we see with Portland. Damian Lillard has that never die mentality, has that me against the world mentality, has that underdog mentality. And we see that's how Portland always plays. And so far, it's worked for them. It's always something to be said where we always going into the season, always Portland look on paper, they don't really have enough to be a playoff contender. Yet every year they're always in the playoffs. There's always, and that's because, like I said, that Damian Lillard mentality. And that mentality got them to the Western Conference Finals. I didn't. If you asked me, looking at the standings, who I thought the Western Conference Finals would be, I had Portland losing first round. Now that's on me, and I own up to that. I was wrong, but that really shows you. That shows you, especially losing your third best player in Josip Nurkic. That see, Portland has that never die spirit, man, and that's why. That is why they are in the Western Conference Finals. And then lastly, we'll talk about the most anticipated. And yeah, anticipated, whatever. Series in the playoffs, and that was the Golden State Warriors against the Houston Rockets. Before I go any further, there's a reason Houston was a 4 seed. You see, Houston has a lot of deficiencies, man. Now, they have one safety valve who is probably one of the best safety valves in the league in James Harden. But they have a lot of deficiencies from their defense, from too ball dominant or ISO dominant, not being a great rebounding team at all, having a rigid or not having a rigid or no whatever, having a scheme that doesn't change, coming up small in big moments, like the last game of the series when all they had to do was beat OKC and they would have been the 2nd seed, but they didn't and they dropped to 4. There's a lot of deficiencies with Houston. But going into the series, a lot of people felt it was a pick'em matchup. You had a lot of people felt that Houston, and I'm not one of these people, that Houston would have beat Golden State if Chris Paul wouldn't have got hurt the last 2 games or 2.5 games of the series. So you're going into this year, one team is completely healthy in Houston. One team is pretty much 95% healthy because, of course, DeMarcus Cousins is still out. This is the showdown that we wanted to see. This was the NBA Finals of last year, pretty much. And let's just chronicle all the big moments that happened in this series. Both teams took care of home court the first 4 games. Golden State winning the first 2, Houston winning the second 2. But if you look at those 2 games that Houston won, one was an overtime win, and one was a game where they were up like 10 points with like 2 minutes left. And when you look at the final play, they were down. Golden State was down 3. Kevin Durant had a wide open 3. He missed. Steph Curry, they got the rebound. Steph Curry pretty much had an open 3. He missed. So if you look at both games that Houston won, Golden State could have very well swept Houston. But then you had the injury. For people that didn't watch or people that didn't know, which I don't. I keep saying that, but how are you a sports fan? You listen to my podcast, but you don't know big situations that happen. So I'm gonna stop saying for people that don't know. I'm gonna just keep moving. But the injury happened. Kevin Durant goes down. It looked like a ACL tear, which I thank God it wasn't. It was a calf strain. He was out for the remainder of the series. At this point, Steph Curry was playing horrible, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. And Klay Thompson wasn't playing good. It really the only people that were playing good in the series for Golden State was Draymond Green and Kevin Durant, and one of them was out for the remainder of the series. So it's time for James Harden to step up. It's time for Chris Paul to step up and be the players that many think you are. And from that moment, Golden State won both games, ultimately winning the series 4-2. James Harden. We'll talk about James Harden and Chris Paul. Let's talk about James first. James Harden is one of the greatest shooting guards to ever play. One of. I'll give him top 5. Offensively. But don't get it twisted. This series took a huge hit to his legacy. You see, when we look at James, we look at being, an offensive juggernaut, an offensive savant. But a lot of those are in the not a lot. Most of these performances, if not all of these performances, are in the regular season. When you look at James Harden playoff performances, he has so many bad moments. Going back to when he was at OKC. Pretty much disappearing in the NBA Finals when they went against Miami. I feel if James Harden would have played better, OKC would have won that series. But James Harden disappearing. Then you go when he was on Houston. I think it's 2015 where he had 13 turnovers. No, when I think it was game 1 or 2 when he could have won the game, but he dribbles it pretty much off his leg in between Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and gets it turned over. In fact, that game, I believe he had 10 turnovers that game. He had a triple-double that game in turnovers. Triple-double the wrong way. We remember the San Antonio series without Kawhi Leonard. You let Manu Ginobili come out of nowhere and block your shot. They lose the series. Even the series they won when they were in Houston against the Clippers. And Houston was looking dead in the water. You bench James Harden. And Houston makes this historic comeback and wins the series. Now, of course, they didn't bench him for the series, but they played better with James Harden on the bench than they did when he was on the floor. And then you go to this year or last year. He was a big part of Houston missing 27 straight shots. A huge part. And then you have this year. Kevin Durant's out. DeMarcus Cousins is out. Golden State's bench is depleted. The remaining stars aren't playing too well. And this series is for you to win. And what happens? You come up short, not 1, but 2.5 games. No. 2 games. You are the reigning MVP or former MVP. Probably going to finish either first or second this year in MVP. It's for you to step up. And he didn't. James Harden, to me, is going to be viewed as a player. That is awesome in the regular season. That is one of the best offensive players to ever play the game, but just came up short in the big moments. And you know who else is going to come to me? He's going to have that legacy stamped to his name as well. Chris Paul. Hell, we remember the collapse. Like Chris Paul was part of that collapse with Houston against Clippers. We remember the collapse against OKC when Reggie Jackson was killing him. We remember the collapse against the Spurs. It's either Chris Paul gets hurt in important situations, or he just does some bonehead dumb shit. I thought once KD went down, now I knew Golden State could win and had a good chance. I mean, you still have a two-time MVP. You still have Klay Thompson. You still have Draymond Green. You still have Andre Iguodala. I knew they could win, but I thought that Houston had their two superstars. And Chris Paul played great in game 6, but played like absolute dog crap in every other game. He has hit that. To me, it looks like he's hitting that wall. And that's scary. That should be terrifying for Houston, because his extension hasn't even started yet. He has one of the worst contracts in the league. Him, Russell Westbrook, sorry to say, but John Wall, those three have some of the worst contracts in the league. Houston, they could win next year. Depending on how things move and shake in the West, they could win next year. But this year will always be a huge negative stamp on both James Harden's legacy and Chris Paul's legacy. And to be completely honest with you, I don't know if they can win next year due to the fact that Chris Paul is another year older, and he looks like he is laboring now. Houston missed their opportunity. To me, Houston will go down as a team like Utah or a team like Phoenix or a team like the Trailblazers or back in the day, when you have the pieces to win, but you just run into a juggernaut. Whether it was the Phoenix Suns continued to run into the either San Antonio Spurs, or you can be the Utah Jazz and the Trailblazers that continue to run up against Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Houston continues to go up against Golden State and loses every time. I don't want to hear about the regular season, because as we see, the regular season doesn't matter. I think the last 2 years, Houston has won the season series against Golden State and has lost every year in the playoffs. This is a huge legacy hit for James Harden. This is a huge legacy hit for Chris Paul. And this is also a huge legacy hit for Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni is known to have revolutionized an offense, but he's also known as being rigid in his offense, not caring too much about defense and being too reliant on players, certain players. Hell, he got Steve Nash two MVPs while Kobe Bryant and Shaq were still in the league dominating. Mike D'Antoni has never been to the Western Conference Finals. I'm sorry. He's never been to the NBA Finals. Never. Having Steve Nash, having Carmelo Anthony, and having James Harden, he has never been to the NBA Finals. Kobe said it best. That ISO style is great and all, but it ain't going to win you championships. And we've seen year after year after year after year after year after year after year. Look at some of the most ISO heavy teams. Kobe Bryant's Lakers without Shaq. Actually, towards the end. Kobe Bryant's Lakers. Russell Westbrook's OKC. James Harden's Houston Rockets. Carmelo Anthony's New York Knicks. None of those equate to championships except for Kobe, but Kobe still had a second player who was dominant. Whether that was Shaq, Pau Gasol, he had Lamar Odom, he had second players. That ISO stuff ain't gonna work. Not in a league when you have Golden State who averages like 30 assists a game. Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it happening. This I don't. If you can't beat Golden State when their best player and Kevin Durant is out, and your team is fully healthy, not to mention Steph Curry is playing awful. Klay Thompson is playing awful. Their best offense is Draymond Green, and you still can't win. I don't think they'll ever win, honestly. I don't think they will ever win. And that brings me over to the Golden State side. And I'm not going to focus on it because we all know how great Golden State is. But one thing I'm going to say. All throughout these playoffs, I've heard the same thing. Steph Curry is overrated. Steph Curry is overrated. Steph Curry is overrated. Steph Curry is overrated. And here's what I'll say to that. When has, in the history of the NBA, a two-time MVP, one of those 2 times was unanimous, a 3-time champion, soon to be 4-time, I believe, this year, but if not this year, a 3-time champion, one of the, to me, top 20 greatest players ever, to me, one of the top 5 greatest point guards ever, a person that revolutionized the game of basketball to what it is today. When has that person ever been overrated? I'll wait. You see, the thing that people like to hang their hat on is Steph Curry always plays terrible in the playoffs. He always plays terrible in the playoffs. He always has somebody bailing him out. He always plays terrible in the playoffs. Oh, yeah? Steph Curry averages 25 points in the playoffs. His career playoff average is 25 points a game. Name me a overrated player that averages 25 points in the playoffs. Yes, some of the things that he does aren't excusable. Like sometimes he's a little lackluster with the ball. He's a little showboaty a little bit and has bad turnovers sometimes. I'm looking at Game 7 of the NBA Finals. That was when he tried to go behind the back. That could have been an easy pass to Klay Thompson. He has some bad turnovers. I think one game this year he had about eight turnovers. He gets a little sloppy with the ball. And this year, he has gone through a shooting drought. But you also got to realize he's playing with a dislocated finger. I understand that it's on his non-shooting finger, but you try doing anything with a dislocated finger. And it's not on your dominant hand. That's tough to do, let alone play at a high level when everybody knows you have a dislocated finger. So they're swiping at it all the time and everything. And the thing about the playoffs is that the refs let a lot of things go in the playoffs. They let a lot of physicality go. That's why James Harden isn't as effective offensively in the playoffs that he is in the regular season, because in the regular season he averages damn near 13 free throws a game. That goes down to I think about 9 in the playoffs. Those 5 extra free throw attempts is huge. Steph Curry is used to softer defense, of course, in the regular season. When you grab Steph Curry, you're going to the line. They don't call that anymore, right? In the playoffs too regularly. And he has a small build. Yeah, he's 6'3", but he has a small build. So for a small build player, it's going to be tough to get your shot off and to do what you got to do. So I don't want to hear that Steph Curry is overrated. For the people that say he's overrated, what I want to do is what scale are you putting Steph Curry on? Like, what are you rating him? How is he overrated? What are you comparing him to call him overrated? To me, that is what I need to see, because looking at Steph Curry, there is no way to me that you can call somebody that great overrated unless you're comparing him to somebody, or you have such a high standard for him that you probably don't have for somebody else that you should. Because there's no reason to me why he'll be overrated. And that showed in Game 6. Steph Curry had one of his worst playoff halves, probably his worst playoff half of his career. 0 points. I think he was like 0 for 7, 0 for 8 or something in the first half. 4 turnovers. That's the only stats he had, was turnovers and maybe a few assists and two fouls. He had one of the worst halves of his career. And what does he do? The second half, he comes out and drops 33 points. 24 points in the fourth quarter, which is the most points he's ever had in a playoff game. He finished the game with 33 points. And a lot of those buckets that he had in the fourth quarter were huge. Houston was still leading the majority of the game. Again, for people that call Steph Curry overrated, how are you rating him? Where should he be in your eyes? Because to me, a person that averages 25 points in a career in the playoffs, to me, is not overrated at all. Yeah, he has a couple bad games. I understand that. And yes, he has some tendencies that are a little off. I'm not saying he doesn't. But overrated? Okay. But let's not lose sight of the fact that Golden State is still Golden State. Klay Thompson had an incredible Game 6 again. I joked on Twitter, Klay Thompson's Game 6 is probably the greatest player ever. Look at the Game 6s he's had. They've all been great. I said it's either him or Game 1 NBA Finals LeBron, or Game 4 or 5 Bron, and when they came back from 3-1 when he dropped 41 each game. Greatest players ever. Until I saw what Curry did the second half. Golden State's bench is lackluster, to say the least. They had a huge Game 5 and Game 6 this series. Kevon Looney was huge, especially with some of the offensive rebounds. Sean Livingston was huge, Game 6. Quentin Cook gave him some good minutes. Jared Jarekbo gave him some good minutes, surprisingly. but they were huge, and they're still a little lackluster. But Golden State, you still have Curry, you still have Klay Thompson, you still have Draymond Green. There's reports that DeMarcus Cousins could come back in the Western Conference Finals. Pretty much, we're expecting KD back. You still have 5 All Stars. They're gonna win. They're gonna win it all, man. And I guess that just goes me into my prediction for next round. I will say this: between Portland and Denver, I think Golden State would have rather seen Denver than Portland. While Golden State has a history of pretty much owning Portland in the playoffs, Damian Lillard still goes crazy against Golden State. CJ McCollum still goes crazy against Golden State. I don't think that they and Portland right now is a hot team. I don't think Golden State wanted to see them. Now, do I think Golden State's worried about them? No. I think this is the first series you're gonna see. You're gonna need a third player, homie. Joseph Nurkic is going to be missed sorely in this. Not saying Golden State has a huge, point paint presence, but without DeMarcus Cousins, of course. But he's gonna be missed. I think Golden State wins this in 6 games, honestly, if that. Golden State's just too talented when they're off. And this is, of course, now if KD does not come back, this series can most definitely go 7 games. But if KD comes back fully healthy and continues the tear that he's on, yeah, this game's going 6, maybe 5, maybe 6. And but we'll see. And that leads me to the next series, which is Milwaukee and Toronto. To me, the 2 best teams. Now, yes, is 1 and 2, so that's clearly the 2 best teams in the East. But these 2 have been the 2 best teams in the East by a country mile. Hell, Milwaukee had the best record in the league, in the entire league, and Toronto. The reason why they're second to me is, or they finished second, is because they rested Kawhi they must have like 25 games, and that to me this is the first time Giannis will be tested, because you're going against arguably the best defender in the league. You ain't seen no animal like you about to see Kawhi Leonard. I have this series going 7, and I have Toronto and Golden State in the NBA Finals. Look. This is going to be a crazy conference finals. It's going to be something serious. And I'm excited, man. Remember, there was a story that came out that I think the ratings are down like 30% because LeBron ain't playing. But this is one of the most exciting playoffs I've seen in a while. Yeah, maybe it's a foregone conclusion of who might win or who might be in the finals, but this has been exciting. This has been incredibly exciting. Damn, I just talked about the NBA for an hour before. I mean, we could talk about the KP fight. Kristaps Porzingis was overseas, and I guess he was at a club or a party and got jumped or something and left out bloody. All I'll say about that is, bro, you're already coming off an injury. You're highly important to Dallas right now. Just get your ass out the sit your ass down somewhere, man. Recover. Get some shots up. Don't be doing crazy shit like that, man. Like, what are you doing? You're not you gotta chill. You got to chill. Shit like that doesn't fly, man. You know, I mean, come on. What else? I could talk about the NCAA ruling to extend the 3-point line, which makes no freaking sense. This goes back to Steph Curry revolutionizing the game of basketball, or the 3-point line. The reason why the NCAA is proposing to extend the 3-point line, more kids or more athletes are shooting them at a record pace, and they're hitting them at a record pace. This wouldn't happen if Steph Curry wasn't doing what he's doing. This is a stupid proposal to me. Don't make it harder for players. Not everybody can shoot threes. And this is a wave. Yes, this is a wave that's been going on for a brick now, but this is a wave. And this is a wave. Look, NCAA, just keep it how it is, man. Hell, the NCAA is still exciting and still one of the most, especially in March, one of the most watched sports in the United States. So what are you doing, man? Just chill out. Chill out. You're being hyperbolic. Let it live, man. Let it live. You don't need to extend nothing. That's a stupid proposal. Don't just stop. Just chill. Anything else before I get to the popular topic of the week? Nah, let's get to the popular topic of the oof. Come on, Jay, get it together, bro. I know it's early, man. Come on. All right, man, let's get to the unpopular topic of the week.
Welcome to the
Unpopular Opinions.
Unpopular opinions.
Have unpopular opinions.
Unpopular opinions.
Okay, so what's an unpopular opinion?
Unpopular opinions.
To utter such blasphemy. He's got the nerve, the audacity, the unmitigated gall to echo such blasphemous nonsense. Just blasphemy.
You know, they say that Father Time is undefeated. And they're absolutely right. Some players, like LeBron James, or like Jamal Crawford, or players, Tom Brady, they defy logic. I mean, you look at Jamal Crawford. He doesn't look like he's 38 years old. LeBron James has played, it's like 34, I believe, but he's played so much basketball. He's played if you put all the basketball miles on him, he's probably like 38, 39. And Tom Brady's 40. Father Time is undefeated, but of course, like I said, there's some people that are postponing Father Time's arrival. And then there are some people that Father Time is calling your name, bro. Not only is he calling your name, he has his hand on your shoulder. You just are. You're not giving it up, bro. And you should. There's nothing worse than overstaying your time and tarnishing what you've done. So this weekend, Anderson Silva, who, in my eyes, is one of the greatest MMA martial arts fighters of all time. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. His greatness is shouldn't be questioned at all. But Anderson Silva had a fight against Israel Adesanya, or whatever his name is. And he lost. In fact, Anderson Silva has lost, I believe, his last 4 fights. Last 3 or last 4 fights. And out of those last 3 or 4, he's been injured in 3 of them. He got injured this weekend, a leg injury. Anderson Silva is 44 years old. Still fighting. Again, to me, he will go down in history as one of the greatest fighters of all time. But it's time to give it up. If you listen to retired players, athletes, they always say the hardest thing about their professional career was knowing when it's time to give it up and knowing when it's time to continue to push. Hell, Shannon Sharp said it. It's you get to a point where you just can't do it anymore. You're looking at players around you and you're like, you can't keep up. Now, I'm sorry. Anderson Silva, he fought this weekend was Jared Cannonier, I don't know, Jared something. And he got knocked out the first round because he got injured. This was on Saturday. And it's not just Anderson Silva, man. We're looking at you, Eli Manning. There should be no reason why you continue to be amongst the leaders in sacks as well as interceptions. You're getting old, bro. Give it up. Look. Again, athletes say that the hardest part about their career was knowing when it was over and accepting, not knowing, because you know when it's over, but accepting when it's over. And overstaying, tarnishing your legacy. People aren't gonna look at Michael Jordan, right? And think that his legacy was the Wizards years. However, they always do bring up those Wizards years because they were there. Nobody's gonna talk about Hakeem Olajuwon in the Raptors years, but they were there. Patrick Ewing, when he played for the Magic, they were there. Hell, we look at his greatness, but nobody talks about how bad Dirk Nowitzki was his last few years because he's old. He went out gracefully, but that's him and Kobe going out was kind of like, you know, they were just great players and their fans loved them and everything, but they still were past over it. Hell, Vince Carter's cheating on that right now. Talking about, I want to stay another year. He continues to say that. Now, of course, out of respect, of course, he's going to get a contract, but people are waiting on Vince to get going, man. Look, man, I love Anderson Silva, man. I really do. But when it's time, bro. And you getting knocked out because you had a leg injury in the first round, and you getting injured, I believe, the last 3 or 4 times, or 3 out of 4 times, it's time to get up, Anderson. And this is a cautionary tale to athletes. When you know it's up, when you know it's time, it's time. It's just accepting that. That doesn't make you less of anybody. Like I said, Shannon Sharp said the hardest thing for him was to accept when it was over. Anderson, Spider-Man Silva, it's over, bro. You will still go down as one of the greatest fighters ever, but don't tarnish your legacy. Trying to do something that you can't do anymore. And that's just a cautionary tale to all athletes. Do not, when it's over, it's over. When it's over, that doesn't take away from all the success that you had. It's just time to move on. And don't hang on, cause I'm trying to tell you, man. It's not it. It gets to me. You're sacrificing not only your legacy, but you're putting yourself in danger. Again, Anderson Silva was injured three of the last 4 times, and one of those times, the man got in trouble for taking like a substance that he was supposed to take. Come on, bro. Do not overstay your playing lifeline, to say the least. It's okay to leave, man. It's okay to leave on top. It's okay to leave when it's time to leave. Just don't get hurt overstaying, and don't tarnish all the legacy that you built trying to live out a dream that you just can't live up anymore. And with that being said, man, let's quickly get to the game of the week.
Game blouses.
I call game.
Expect the game.
It's game time. Play no games.
It's the game of the week.
Play the game.
I ain't about to play no games.
So I'm gonna just keep this simple, man. The game of the week is the second round of the Eastern Conference Finals. The Eastern Conference Finals is exciting, man. To me, you got Toronto against Milwaukee. One of the best defensive teams against one of the best players. Kawhi against Giannis Antetokounmpo. Kyle Lowry against Eric Bledsoe. Marc Gasol against Brook Lopez. There's so many storylines in this. Will Kawhi Leonard make it back lead Toronto to their first NBA Finals ever? Will Giannis continue his MVP-like season and propel the Bucks, who've been juggernauts this year, to the finals? Who's gonna win between Giannis and Kawhi Leonard? Who's a better player? Like, there's so many storylines in this matchup that it has to be my game of the week. I believe the first game is Wednesday in 2 days at 9 o'clock or 7 o'clock, one of them two. I know it's Wednesday, though. This series, to me, is more exciting than the Western Conference. Now, the Western Conference is good, too, but this is... I'm excited, just like I was excited, not as excited that I was with Golden State against Rockets. I'm excited about this. This team is both of these teams to me are so evenly matched that whoever goes out, I'm not mad at it all. And I wouldn't be surprised because they're all great. Both these teams are great teams. So my game of the week is going to be Wednesday in 2 days, I believe at 7 o'clock, Milwaukee against Toronto. And there you have it, man. I want to appreciate you guys, man. I really do. I keep saying that there's a big announcement on the way, and it is coming. Trust me, I'm working behind the scenes. I'm working behind the scenes. Again, I want to thank you guys for listening. Man, I hope y'all continue to have great days, man. I really do. I hope that you guys continue to have long, beautiful days, and continue to do y'all thing, man. I really, just keep shining, man. For people that's in this podcast world, well, shit, I'm still new in this podcast world. So this is what, episode 47, 48, something like that. But again, just keep going, man. Keep going. Again, I want to thank you guys for listening to the Unpopular Podcast. Please subscribe. For people that listen to my YouTube, please subscribe. Please share. Please subscribe. Even if you listen to my SoundCloud, my iTunes, my Spotify, just subscribe to the channel, man. It would mean so much to me if you subscribe. Again, it means a lot to me that you're even coming to listen, that you're clicking on the link to listen. But please subscribe. It would mean the world to me. I do appreciate it. I appreciate you guys. And until next time, much love.
Yeah. Look. For them niggas though, let them die slowly. For them, look, I've been in the studio for 80 hours. I miss birthdays and baby showers. I wish I could do everything I want and be everywhere at once, but I need crazy powers. Watch when you get the light, those are shady hours. That's when niggas start popping out the woodwork. You know they want a favor when they ask you, is you good first? I tell them piss off. I'm trying to make an album so good that everyone involved gonna be rich off. Mama love could go and pay the crib off. Never been an exit, where the fuck the niggas get off? I am the original, the sequel and the spinoff. How the fuck y'all gonna flex on me with some shit that I lynch off? When I shoot, I catch a body and knock a limb off. Boy, you're working, not a bit off. This is not a street you wanna quit off. This is the floor that had the kid up in Cali crib with the kicks off. So let them niggas starve, yeah. If he die, he die, he ain't one of ours. I just go, get the ball, go 100 yards, niggas know. Madden flow, I don't punt it all, nigga. You know how niggas play Madden? It be like 4th and 35, and niggas still going for it. Nigga, that's me, boy. I ain't never punting, I'ma always go for it, nigga. Come up with this Hail Mary or something, I'ma make a play. Watch. Yeah, this bitch and every nigga that's with him ain't shit, though. Every time I miss a call, I was fucking. You don't wanna see me end up with nothing. Jump to conclusions, come up with something. Question every girl that's in my circumference. You question shit like you Wonder Woman. You gotta stop believing everything that you feel. And just cause you think it, don't mean that it's real. Shit, I need an apology. You always bringing out this side of me. You act like being with you is hitting the lottery. To the point where seeing your tears don't even bother me. You count my mistakes like the calories and point them out to me. You so busy trying to catch me in the wrong. You supposed to be looking out for me. Fuck be going on, you drunk off the set of home. Not right now, not while I'm in the zone. Don't you see a nigga out here trying to get the shit off? City got a ceiling on it, trying to get the lid off. Next, I'm too close for fake friends and new folks. Or old ones that said I'ma help and blew smoke. I should've been cut them off, but they cheated death. Now I respond to their phone calls via text. Why they wanna do the most when they needed less? They said, yo, it's been a minute, I'ma need a sec. Thought I been cut them off, but they cheated death. Watch folks do the most when you need them less. Yeah.